Much, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, this week we've seen something long overdue and quite unusual. This week we've actually seen a couple of members opposite express that they care about what happens in our classrooms and that they have some concerns about the challenges which are facing our schools. Unfortunately, the members opposite have failed to identify what is the biggest challenge which is facing the Australian school system, and that is this government's policies. That is, if those members opposite really cared about the education that Australian children were receiving, we would hear them speaking up, we would hear them speaking up more often, and we would hear them speaking up about the fact that their own government intends to rip $30 billion out of Australia's school education system. We know that they are the cuts that will have a savage impact on every school's ability to improve literacy and numeracy in the classroom. We know that the greatest challenge to Australia's education system is improving to become world-class, in spite of the fact that this government is intent to deliver the biggest cuts to school government funding in Australia's history. Now, there is a simple fact that the Prime Minister can talk as much as he likes about innovation. He can talk as much as he likes about how important innovation is for Australia's future. But the simple reality is we cannot be an innovative nation of the future without investing in ensuring that we have a world-class school education system. So what we've seen is that whilst the Prime Minister likes to talk, when we actually look at his actions when it comes to innovation, they are all actions which will have a negative impact on Australia's ability to be the innovative nation that we want for the future. This is a Prime Minister who promised an ideas boom but has delivered an education bust. And the Prime Minister says that he supports innovation, but his cuts to education will rip $30 billion out of our schools. That is every school, it is every student who will be affected. The Prime Minister says that he supports innovation, but he is still committed to $100,000 degrees, to university funding cuts and deregulation. The Prime Minister, who says that he supports innovation, but his government is sacking hundreds of world-class researchers at the CSIRO. This Prime Minister can talk as much as he likes, and we all know that he does like to talk. But he is a Prime Minister who ultimately will be judged on his actions, and his actions undermine Australia's innovation at every single occasion. You cannot have innovation without investment in education. The government's actions say it all when it comes to priorities. We know that their $30 billion cuts to our schools will lock Australian students into inequity and mean that students who need the most help will just be pushed further behind. To put it in context, the $30 billion that this government is proposing to cut from our schools budget is about the same as cutting 1 in every 7 teachers, or to strip $3.2 million on average from every single school across Australia. Investing in innovation starts with a properly funded education system. Investing in innovation starts with investing in every young Australian to get the school education that they deserve. Now, on this side of the House, we know that you can't talk about innovation without talking about education. Whilst the Liberal Party have no vision for the future of our education system, we have a comprehensive plan to invest in our children's future. Our plan for education is about schools, but it isn't just about schools. Ours is a plan that is about jobs, it is about economic growth, and it is about Australia's future. Our schools policy will start by undoing the damage which has been caused by the Turnbull government's policies, but it will go beyond that. We will honour the 6-year needs-based school funding agreements that were signed with the states and territories and that this government went to the last election promising that they would honour before walking away from. And we will go beyond that. We will provide long-term certainty for schools by reversing the government's school cuts across the next decade. This is a policy that will invest targeted resources in the students of today so that we can have the growth, the jobs, the strong economy and the innovation that we need for the future. This is about a permanent change in our education system. Needs-based funding will make sure that it reaches the students who will need it the most. This includes making sure that students from low SES backgrounds are adequately supported, Indigenous students, students with disability, students with limited English, and students in small schools or in regional, rural and remote areas who the National Party have gone absolutely silent on and have stopped fighting for. For every single child, it will mean a strong focus on that child's needs. It will mean more individual attention for students. It will mean better trained teachers. It will mean more targeted resources, better equipped classrooms and more support for students with disability and special learning needs. Now, there are important reasons why we believe that this is so important for Australia's future. That if you actually have a look at the facts, you can see that we are a country that cannot afford to stick with the Turnbull government's school education policies. We know that worldwide our national performance is slipping. We need to front up about this. In the year 2000, only one country outperformed Australia in reading and maths. In 2006, only 2 countries outperformed us in science. Today, 16 other countries outperform Australia in maths, 9 countries outperform us in reading and 7 countries outperform us in science. Right now, we know that students with disability in Australia are missing out on opportunities that are taken for granted by other students and which they deserve and must be granted. We know that for students in country schools, that they are up to 1.5 years behind their city peers on average in science and up to 2 years behind in maths. And we know that every challenge that is faced by students in the bush is magnified when you have a look at the challenges facing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. The OECD has found that if Australia can equip all of our secondary school graduates with the basic skills needed for the global economy by 2030, that is the equivalent of adding 2.8% to our GDP. In today's dollars, that would be $44 billion in addition to our economy. So perhaps if those opposite do belatedly want to stand up and talk about problems in our schools, if they want to stand up and express that they have some interest in ensuring that Australian students get a great education, these are the issues that they should be focused on, and they should start with their Prime Minister and start with their Treasurer and tell them to reverse their $30 billion in cuts. Now, Labor's Our Child, Our Future will provide certainty for schools. It will meet the needs of individual students so that we can help them achieve their best. And we have clear goals. It includes ensuring that all STEM teachers are tertiary qualified by 2020, ensuring that digital technologies and computer science, coding, is taught in every school across Australia by 2020 because we know how important it is to our future. It means setting a target of 95% Year 12 completion by 2020 because young Australians need to finish school to have the greatest opportunity to succeed in life. And it also sets the target of returning Australia to be in the top 5 countries in reading, maths and science by 2025. This will mean targeted investment to improve teaching and lift student results. Unless we can make sure that every student in every school gets a great education, we simply will not be able to improve our international scores, and our economy and our country will be held back. We need to prepare our workforce for the challenges of the future. We need to prepare our children for the jobs of the future. We need to prepare our economy for the challenges of the future. And if we do not start with a strong education system, our children and our country will be left behind and we will not achieve what we deserve. We cannot sit by and wait for the future to come to us. We need a positive plan for the jobs and skills of the future. Labor has put forward that plan. Labor has put forward a fully costed, fully funded plan to reverse the cuts, to undo the damage that this government has done after betraying everything that they promised the Australian public when they went to the last election promising a unity ticket and holding up banners that said you can vote Liberal or Labor and you will get exactly the same amount of funding for your school. We have seen that that was just blatantly untrue. So when we have members like Senator Bernardi standing up saying, I think our schools should be talking about reading, writing and arithmetic, literacy and numeracy numbers are declining right across the board, perhaps he could focus on the biggest challenge to literacy and numeracy in our schools, and that is his own government, it is his own Prime Minister's cuts, and it is the fact that they are completely silent in the party room when it comes up for standing for students. I'm not surprised the Prime Minister sold out students this week when he rolled over to the right wing of the Liberal Party, because he's done it every day of his Prime Ministership.